You are sitting in the silence of their absence. And in that silence, a single but destructive thought is looping in your mind. You are telling yourself that you were not enough. You are telling yourself that if you were just better, prettier, richer, calmer, more understanding, if you were just more, they would have stayed. You look at the people they dated before you, the casual flings, the superficial connections, and you see that those people stuck around longer than you did. So the logic seems undeniable. They left you. So you must be less valuable than the ones they kept. I need you to stop. I need you to take that thought, and I need you to crush it, because it is a lie. I am going to tell you the brutal truth that your insecurity does not want you to hear. The truth that is actually much harder to process than the rejection itself. They didn't leave because you were meaningless. They didn't push you away because you lacked value. They ran because you were the most significant thing that has ever happened to them. This is the great paradox of the avoidant attachment style. This is the tragic mechanism that breaks hearts. To an avoidant, meaningless is safe. Casual is sustainable. Superficial is forever. But special is a threat. Special is dangerous. Special is terrifying. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are not just talking about heartbreak. We are going into the neuroscience of fear. We are going to dismantle the avoidant brain to understand why they recoil from the very love they spend their lives searching for. You see, most people operate on a simple logic. If I like this person, I get closer. If I love this person, I stay. But the avoidant mind operates on a reverse polarity. It is rewired by trauma to associate intimacy with the loss of self. Think about it. When they were with people who didn't matter, people who didn't see them, people who didn't challenge them, they were fine, they were cool, they were collected. Why? Because there were no stakes. You cannot lose something you do not value. You cannot be destroyed by a stranger. But then, you came along, and you were different. You saw them. You understood them. You connected with them on a frequency that bypassed their defenses. You triggered a sensation in their nervous system that they have likely spent years suppressing. You triggered hope, and to a disorganized or dismissive avoidant. Hope is the most terrifying emotion in the human spectrum, because hope implies dependency, and dependency, to them, equals death. The moment they realized you were special was the moment the clock started ticking. The moment they realized they could fall in love with you was the moment their amygdala, the fear center of the brain, pulled the fire alarm. You are confused because you are looking at the situation through the lens of a secure or anxious person. You think intimacy is a warm blanket, but to them, intimacy is a high-voltage wire. And you are the power plant. The more you loved them, the more voltage you pumped into a system that was not built to handle it. So they blew a fuse. They shut down. They deactivated. They didn't leave because the connection was dead. They left because the connection was too alive. It was too real. It demanded too much vulnerability. If you were boring, they might still be texting you. If you were shallow, they might still be sleeping with you. But because you were the one, or at least the closest thing to the one they have encountered, they had to eliminate the threat. In this audio, we are going to explore exactly what happens inside their mind when they realize you are special. We are going to look at why they admire you in secret, even while they treat you with coldness in public. And most importantly, we are going to talk about why you must stop shrinking yourself to fit into their fear. You were not rejected for your flaws. You were rejected for your magnitude. Let that sink in. Let's go deeper. Let's move away from poetry and look at biology. Because at the end of the day, love is a biological event. To understand why they ran, you have to understand the war taking place inside the avoidant skull. It is a war between two very powerful systems in the human brain, the ventral striatum and the amygdala. The ventral striatum is the reward center. It is fueled by dopamine. When they first met you, when they saw your value, when they laughed at your jokes, this part of their brain lit up like a Christmas tree. It screamed, "This is good. This feels amazing. I want more. This is the honeymoon phase. And contrary to popular belief, avoidants love the honeymoon phase. They can be charming, they can be intense, they can be incredibly present. Why? Because at this stage, the connection is all dopamine. And no danger. It is all fantasy. And no reality. But then, time passes. The connection deepens. You become important. You become real. And this is where the amygdala wakes up. The amygdala is the brain's smoke detector. Its only job is to scan the environment for threats to survival. It doesn't care about your happiness. It doesn't care about romance. It only cares about keeping the organism alive. In a secure brain, intimacy is registered as safety. When a secure person gets close to a partner, their nervous system calms down. Oxytocin flows. The smoke detector stays silent. But in an avoidant brain, the wiring is crossed due to early childhood neglect or enmeshment or trauma. Their brain has learned a deadly lesson. Intimacy is not safe. Intimacy is a trap. Intimacy is the precursor to pain. So, here is the tragedy. The more high value you are, the louder their amygdala screams. Think about it like this. If you are holding a plastic cup, you are not worried about dropping it. You are relaxed. You don't grip it tight. You don't think about it. But if someone hands you a diamond the size of a fist, suddenly, your hands start to sweat. Your heart rate goes up. You become hypervigilant. You are terrified of losing it, or being robbed, or dropping it. The value of the object creates stress in the holder. You are the diamond, and they are terrified of holding you. When they look at a casual partner, someone they don't really respect, someone they don't see a future with, their amygdala is quiet. There is no threat. Because if that person leaves, who cares? If that person cheats, whatever. There is no risk. So they can act cool, they can stay, they can play house. But when they look at you, the stakes are astronomical. If you leave, it will destroy them. If you engulf them, it will erase them. So, the brain makes a calculation, a cold, survivalist calculation. Option A, keep this valuable person, but live in a state of constant, high-level anxiety and vulnerability. Option B, get rid of the person, go back to being alone, and return to a baseline of safety. The avoidant brain almost always chooses option B. It is not a logical choice. They don't sit down with a spreadsheet and decide to break your heart. It is a hijack. It is a neuroception of threat. Their body goes into fight or flight. And since they cannot fight you because they love you, they choose flight. They run from the gold, specifically because it is gold. If you were just a piece of rock, they wouldn't bother running. They would just step over you. You need to understand this mechanism. Their withdrawal is not a measure of your lack of worth. It is a measure of their lack of capacity to handle worth. They are biologically overwhelmed by the significance of your existence. And this leads us to the next layer of their internal hell. The mirror and Now, let's strip away another layer of the illusion. We have talked about fear. Now we need to talk about shame. Because this is the secret killer of relationships with an avoidant. It is the silent poison that they will never, ever admit to you. When an avoidant looks at you, and they see someone kind, someone consistent, someone loving, someone who communicates their needs openly, someone who is willing to be vulnerable, they don't just see you. They see a reflection of everything they are not. This is what I call the mirror of inadequacy. You see, you think your love is a gift. You think your patience is a virtue. You think your emotional intelligence is helpful. And in a healthy relationship, it is. But to an avoidant, your emotional health is an accusation. Every time you are loving, it reminds them that they are cold. Every time you are open, it reminds them that they are closed. Every time you express a need, it reminds them that they feel incapable of meeting it. You become a walking, talking reminder of their own brokenness. It's psychological projection at its finest. They look at you, and they feel small. They feel defected. It is the imposter syndrome of relationships. Deep down, the avoidant carries a core wound of defectiveness. They believe, subconsciously, that there is something fundamentally wrong with them, that if you really saw them, if you really knew the emptiness they feel inside, you would be disgusted. So, when you look at them with those eyes full of love and admiration, they don't feel good. They feel like a fraud. They are thinking, she thinks I'm this great guy. He thinks I'm this deep soul. But I'm not. I'm just playing a role. And sooner or later, the mask will slip. Sooner or later, I will disappoint them. The pressure to maintain that image becomes unbearable. You think you are lifting them up. You say things like, "You are so amazing," or "I've never met anyone like you." You think you are giving compliments, but to their ears, you are setting a standard they know they will fail to meet. You are raising the bar, and to an exhausted runner. Raising the bar doesn't look like a challenge. It looks like a trap. So, what do? They smash the mirror. They break up with you. Not because they don't like what they see in you, but because they can't stand what they see in themselves when they are around you. They leave to protect their ego. When they are alone. Or when they are with a superficial partner who expects nothing. They don't have to feel inadequate. They can just be. They don't have to measure up to your depth. By pushing you away, they are not rejecting you. They are trying to escape the crushing weight of their own shame. They are running back to the comfort of mediocrity, because mediocrity does not ask them to be better than they feel they are. It is a tragedy. Your light was so bright that it cast a shadow they couldn't live in. We have looked at the brain, and we have looked at the ego. Now, we must look at the body. Specifically, we need to talk about the engulfment alarm. If you have an anxious attachment style, your biggest fear is abandonment. Your nightmare is the empty room. Your nightmare is silence. When the person you love pulls away, your nervous system screams, "I am going to die alone." But the avoidant, their nightmare is the opposite. Their nightmare is not the empty room. Their nightmare is the room that is too full. Their nightmare is the door that won't open. To an avoidant, the greatest threat to survival is not isolation, it is absorption. This is what psychologists call engulfment, and it is a visceral, somatic experience. It is not a logical thought process. They don't think, "I need some space." They feel, physically, like they are suffocating. Imagine you are underwater. You are holding your breath. It's peaceful for a moment. But then, your lungs start to burn. You need air. You need to breach the surface. You start to panic. All you can think about, the only thing you can think about, is oxygen. Now, imagine someone is holding onto your ankle, pulling you down. That person might love you. That person might be trying to hug you. That person might just want to be close to you. But because you are running out of air, that hug feels like a murder attempt. This is what intimacy feels like to an avoidant when it gets too close, too fast. You see, for most of their lives, independence was their only safety net. Self-reliance was their religion. They survived their childhoods by building a fortress around their self. When you come along, with your love and your needs and your desire for union, you are not just a lover, you are an invader. You are breaching the fortress. The closer you get, the more their brain signals that their individual identity is being erased. They start to feel that we is killing I. This is why they freak out over the smallest things. You ask them, "What are we doing this weekend?" It's a normal question. But to them, it sounds like a demand. It sounds like a cage door clicking shut. They hear, "You are not free. Your time is not yours. It belongs to me." You text them, "I miss you." It's a sweet sentiment. But to them, it feels like a debt. It feels like an obligation. They feel the weight of your emotional state resting on their shoulders, and their knees buckle under the pressure. They begin to resent you. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence makes them feel trapped. And here is the cruelest part of the engulfment alarm. It triggers most intensely when things are calm. Have you ever noticed that you have a perfect weekend together? You laugh. You connect. The sex is amazing. The vulnerability is high. You think, finally, we are getting somewhere. And then, Monday comes, and they are gone. They are cold. They are distant. Why? Because that closeness was too much oxygen consumed. They are in oxygen debt. They need to surface. They need to push you away to reclaim their sense of autonomy. They need to remember that they still exist as a separate entity from you. They are not leaving you because they lost interest. They are leaving you to find themselves again. It is a biological imperative. To you, closeness is safety. To them, closeness is consumption. And until they regulate that alarm, until they learn that they can be connected and free at the same time, they will always swim away to breathe. So, the engulfment alarm rings. The fear sets in. The brain decides it is time to survive. Now, we witness the behavior that confuses you the most. We witness the great sabotage. In psychology, we have a specific term for what happens next. It is called deactivating strategies. These are mental and behavioral tools the avoidant uses to squash their attachment system. Think of it as emotional anesthesia. They realize they care too much, so they inject themselves with a numbing agent to kill the feeling. And the timing of this sabotage is what makes it so cruel. It almost always happens right after a vulnerability hangover. Let me paint the scene. You just had the most incredible weekend. Maybe you shared a deep secret. Maybe you said, "I love you." Maybe you just laid in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, feeling completely in sync. To you, this is progress. To them, this is an overdose. They wake up the next morning with an emotional hangover. They feel exposed. They feel naked. They feel like they gave you the codes to their nuclear launch site, and panic sets in. So, the deactivation begins. How do they do it? They start to rewrite reality in real time. They start to focus on your flaws. This is a subconscious defense mechanism designed to lower your value. If they can convince themselves that you are not perfect, then losing you won't hurt as much. Suddenly, the way you chew your food is annoying. Suddenly, your laugh is too loud. Suddenly, your job isn't ambitious enough. Suddenly, they just get the ick. They become hypercritical. They nitpick. They find reasons to be irritated. Why? Because anger is a shield. Irritation is a wall. It is much easier to be annoyed with you than to be in love with you. Annoyance creates distance. Love creates proximity. So, they might pick a fight about nothing, a fight about the dishes, a fight about a tone of voice. You are standing there, confused, thinking, why are we fighting? We were so happy yesterday. But that is exactly the point. They are fighting because you were so happy yesterday. They are creating a conflict to push you back to a safe distance. They are breaking the glass to let some air into the room. They are sabotaging the sanctuary because the sanctuary feels like a prison. And then comes the silence, the withdrawal. They stop texting. They give one-word answers. They become busy. They are retreating into their cave to regulate their nervous system. They are trying to get their baseline back. They are trying to remember who they were before you came along and disrupted their lonely peace. It is painful for you. It feels like a punishment, but you have to understand. They are not punishing you. They are protecting themselves. They are burning the bridge because they are terrified of crossing it. There is a myth that haunts every person who has been discarded by an avoidant. The myth is that they don't care. The myth is that they forgot you. The myth is that while you were crying on your bathroom floor, they are out living their best life, completely unbothered by your absence. It feels that way, doesn't it? Their silence is so loud. It feels like erasure. But I am here to tell you that this is a lie. Avoidants do not have amnesia. They have compartmentalization. They have taken the memory of you, and they have locked it inside a silent archive deep within their mind. They have buried it under layers of distraction, work, and maybe even new, superficial relationships. But just because a book is on a shelf doesn't mean it hasn't been written. And here is the twist. This is where the psychology gets truly twisted. The moment you are truly gone, the moment you stop chasing, the moment you are no longer a threat to their independence. The deactivation strategy shuts off. The amygdala calms down, the fear evaporates, and what is left? The love, the admiration, the good memories. Suddenly, Zyle, disowned without the pressure of a real relationship, their brain allows them to miss you. This brings us to one of the most famous concepts in attachment theory, the Phantom X. An avoidant often pines for a lost love. They romanticize the one that got away. And guess what you are becoming, that phantom? When you were with them, you were real. You had needs, you had flaws, you were messy, you were a problem, but now that you are gone, you are perfect. You are safe. You are a fantasy. They will start to look back at the relationship through rose-colored glasses. They will remember the laughter. They will remember the chemistry. They will conveniently forget the anxiety they felt. They will put you on a pedestal. But do not mistake this for a desire to reconcile. They use the memory of you as a shield to protect themselves from future intimacy. When they meet someone new, someone who actually wants to get close to them, they will sabotage that new relationship by comparing it to you. They will think, this new person isn't as funny as her, or this new person doesn't get me like he did. They use you, the phantom, to keep the new person at arm's length. It is the ultimate tragedy. They couldn't love you when you were there, but they will worship you when you are gone. They love you. From a distance, because from a distance, you cannot engulf them. From a distance, you cannot demand anything. You have become a safe object of affection. You are no longer a high-voltage wire. You are a beautiful painting in a museum. They can admire you. They can miss you, but they don't have to touch you. So, do not think for 1 second that you meant nothing. You are likely the ghost that will haunt their relationships for years to come. You are the standard against which everyone else will fail. But ask yourself, is that really what you want? To be loved only as a memory, to be valued only when you are absent. We are now approaching the heart of the paradox. We have talked about how they pushed you away. We have talked about the fear. We have talked about the sabotage. But what if I told you that in the quiet moments? When the fear isn't screaming, they hold you in higher regard than anyone else in their life. This is the secret admiration. And it is the one thing an avoidant will almost never admit to your face. Why? Because in the mind of an avoidant, admiration is dangerous. To admire you is to give you power. To admit that you are special is to hand you a weapon that could destroy them. So, they wear a mask of indifference. They act cool. They act unbothered. They might even act arrogant. But behind that mask, there is a monologue of reverence that would break your heart if you could hear it. If we could put a microphone inside their subconscious, here is what we would hear. They look at your ability to express emotions, and they don't think it's weak. They think it is a superpower. They think, how is she so brave? How can he just say what he feels without crumbling? I wish I could do that. They look at your loyalty, and they feel a deep, aching respect. They think, they stayed even when I was difficult. They saw the worst parts of me and didn't run. That is rare. They look at your life, your passion, your kindness, and they feel honored that you chose them. But here is the twist. This admirer back in the vulnerability. They are back in the danger zone. So they keep the admiration secret. It becomes a private relic, a hidden treasure in the museum of their mind. And you are left wondering if you ever mattered at all. You did. You mattered more than anyone. You mattered too much. So, here we are, the million-dollar question. Now that you know the neuroscience, now that you know about the amygdala, the engulfment alarm, and the secret admiration, what do? Your instinct, your loving, anxious, desperate instinct is telling you to fight. It is telling you to send that long text explaining your feelings. It is telling you to drive to their house. It is telling you to prove to them, through sheer force of will, that you are not a threat. You want to love them into submission. I need you to stop. I need you to put the phone down, because I am going to tell you the hardest truth of all. You cannot convince a nervous system to feel safe. You cannot argue with an amygdala. You cannot use logic to dismantle a survival instinct. The more you try to fix it, the more you try to explain your intentions, the more you are confirming their fear to an avoidant. Your effort feels like pressure, and pressure feels like a predator. Every text is a poke. Every call is a demand. Every "I miss you" is a weight added to a structure that is already collapsing. If you chase, they must run. It is a law of physics. It is Newton's third law applied to psychology. For every action of pursuit, there is an equal and opposite reaction of withdrawal. So, how do you break the cycle? How do you stop the dance? You do the one thing that feels completely counterintuitive. You do the one thing that feels like giving up. You remove the pressure. You stop chasing. You stop watching their stories. You stop asking mutual friends about them. You stop trying to be the perfect partner who waits in the wings. You create a vacuum. You see, right now, their entire brain is focused on defending against you. They are pushing against a door because they think you are trying to kick it down. But if you step back, if you walk away from the door, they are left pushing against thin air. They stumble. They lose their balance. And suddenly, the noise in their head stops. When the pressure is gone, the engulfment alarm turns off. The threat level drops to 0. And in that silence, something miraculous happens. The curiosity system comes back online. Human beings, even avoidant ones, are biologically wired to be curious. But curiosity cannot exist where there is fear. Fear monopolizes the brain's resources. Only when they feel completely safe, only when they realize you are not chasing them, can they begin to wonder, why did they stop? Are they gone? Did I lose them? And that is where the shift happens. That is when the Phantom X mechanism kicks in. That is when they start to remember your value instead of your demand. But, and this is critical, you cannot do this as a strategy to get them back. If you are ignoring them just to get a reaction, they will smell it. They are hypervigilant. They can sense your waiting energy. You have to actually let go. You have to take all that love, all that energy, all that focus you were pouring into the black hole of their trauma, and pour it back into yourself. You have to become the protagonist of your own life again. This is not about manipulation. This is about stabilization. You are not removing your love to punish them. You are removing your love to protect it. You are respecting their boundary. And more importantly, you are establishing your own. You are saying, I love you, but I love myself too much to chase someone who is running. This is the only stance that commands respect. This is the only stance that signals high value. And ironically, it is the only stance that ever brings them back. So, take a deep breath. I want you to physically feel the air entering your lungs. I want you to feel your own existence. We have traveled a long way in this audio. We have gone into the darkest corners of the avoidant mind. We have looked at the wires, the fears, the alarms, and the ghosts. And now, I need you to do the most important thing of all. I need you to rewrite the story you have been telling yourself for weeks, for months, maybe even for years. You have been carrying a heavy burden. You have been carrying the weight of their rejection. You have been looking in the mirror and asking, what is wrong with me? You have been dissecting your texts, analyzing your behavior, replaying every fight, searching for the moment where you weren't enough. But now you know the truth, and the truth is the only thing that can set you free. You were never the problem. You were not rejected because you were flawed. You were not pushed away because you were unlovable. You were not abandoned because you lacked value. You were pushed away because your love was a tidal wave. And they were a person who never learned how to swim. You were rejected because your light was a supernova, and their eyes were only adjusted to the dark. It was never a question of your worth. It was always a question of their capacity. Please do not miss this distinction. You offered them a banquet, and they starved themselves because they were afraid of getting full. That is not a reflection of the food. That is a reflection of their trauma. So, I am asking you to stop waiting. Stop waiting for them to wake up. Stop waiting for their amygdala to calm down. Stop waiting for them to realize what they lost. They might realize it. In fact, they almost certainly will. But they might realize it 10 years from now, or 20, or on their deathbed. Do you have that kind of time? Is your life so cheap that you can afford to spend it in a waiting room? No. You are the diamond. Remember, you are the prize. It is time to take your energy back. It is time to stop trying to shrink yourself to fit into their small, fearful world. You are not too much. You have never been too much. You are just, vast. You are deep. You are real. And somewhere out there is a nervous system that is looking for exactly that kind of voltage. There is a person who will look at your depth and not feel fear, but feel home. Don't dim your light just to make someone else comfortable in their shadow. Let them run. Let them hide. Let them be safe in their silence. You have a life to live. You have a heart to share. And you have a reality to reclaim. Walk away, not in anger, but in the absolute, unshakable knowledge of who you are. You are the one they will remember. But more importantly, you are the one who survived. Healing starts now.